We watched the finale to Season 1 of House of the Dragon, so you know what time it is!
Hit that intro!
Woo!
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hey everybody, if it's your first time joining us, welcome. We're two dads who love all things fandom, from Star Wars to Star Trek, Marvel to DC, and Middle-earth on down to Westeros. We love it all, and we want to share all of our insights and love of all things fandom to you, our viewers. So if that's your glass of fine Westerosi wine, then we're here for you, and you should definitely subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on all the amazing reviews and insights that we bring to all of our favorite fandoms. So thanks for tuning in, guys. I'm joined, as always, by my best friend, King Matthew of the House Parham, first of his name, King of the Andals, the Rhynar, and the First Men, and Protector of the Realm. My name is King Christopher of House Matthews, first of his name, King in the North, Lord of Winterfell, Commander of the Night's Watch, King beyond the Wall, the White Wolf, and the Undead. So how you doing today, King?
Not too bad, man. I gotta tell you, I've been looking forward to this all week, ever since Sunday.
Yes!
Ready to get my Pixar on.
Woo!
Right?
That's what we're watching today. So,
watching
little
Toy Story, I thought. Yeah.
A little bit of Toy Story instead of the biggest finale viewership.
Oh, yeah. House of the Dragon.
In
right,
HBO's hit. Yeah. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon, Episode 10, titled The Black Queen. So guys, as always, I look up the Rotten Tomatoes score. So on this, we're getting a 91% fresh from Rotten Tomatoes here. Critics, there's about 32 critics that rated this episode. 3 of those rated it as rotten. 29% rated it as fresh. And the average rating out of 10 was 8.5. So pretty cool. So let's we know what the critics think. Let's talk about what these two kings think about this episode. So go for it, brother.
Yeah. So being the master of my domain over here, so to speak, I'm ready to launch right into this review and say I thought this was another excellent episode of House of the Dragon. I love, again, that we are paced down to a very tight story. You know, this is giving us, again, good character moments and
so many,
paying off a lot of what has been built up in the past 9 episodes that came before it. And I will say that I'm very anxious to hear your review, Chris, of the entire series so far, I guess this entire season so far, as well as what you thought of this episode individually.
Yeah, definitely. And so we get to look forward to that too. So we get to kind of dive into this episode. But I mean, this is the last episode, the finale. We got it. We made it to the end, brother. So we're going to be kind of overviewing our feelings on this season, how it went, what do we think, and how we enjoyed it. So awesome deal.
Well, and I'm not gonna mince words here. I guess the big thing for me, of course, was the end of this episode. Just brought us right to the moment that the Dance of the Dragons becomes, as the books describe it, a much more bloody affair, and we've moved from the conspiring stages of things to what will end up being all-out warfare, as we can see from the look on Queen Rhaenyra's face at the end of this episode after she learns about the tragic death of her son, Prince Luke.
Good Lord, yeah.
So,
absolutely. So that's the beginning of Dance of the Dragons. Before that, it was like the War of the Crows and the Messengers, I think, is what they were technically calling that short period of time.
Right, yeah, and I think that the look that Emma Darcy gave us from her character Queen Rhaenyra at that last shot just said everything about this series and all the pain that she's been in. Once again, we start out the episode where we're seeing another terrible childbirth in
so brutal
in this fantasy world. very brutal, and it speaks to the authenticity that the show creators have put into displaying what women go through. You know, in this case, I never thought we'd see this on any episode of an HBO program, let alone one set in a fantasy world, but a stillborn baby and what looked to be like a mutated one, and we'll get into that.
That's true.
But just a brutal, brutal scene. Yeah. But it very much informs us as an audience of what this character is going through. She hears the death of her father. She hears that the throne has been stolen from her, and it puts her into preterm labor. Yeah. And she is fighting with the biology that she has to as a woman, but also with all of the pressure being the queen of the realm, but not really having it taken from her, war possibly on the horizon, just all these things coming to head, and she has to deliver a baby, and it's gut-wrenching, of course.
Oh, man.
But it puts us right in the mindset of what she must be going through.
Yeah, and a total parallel of the first episode of this season of House of the Dragon, when Viserys had to make that awful choice with Aemma Targaryen about the birth of their son, and ended up both of those dying. And it's amazing. Like, this was the crux of the character of Rhaenyra, where she had to give birth and she decided to do it on her own, and just the amount of sadness and amount of strength that it took to go through that on her own like that, to push that out there. And just it was. And the baby was deformed, and this is one of those things. I mean, they have interbred quite a bit in this family, right? And so they do talk about this a lot.
Yeah, this would be one of Daemon's children here. So,
yeah, so they were deformed. This is kind of the same thing that parallels to Daenerys in Game of Thrones as well. You know, Khal Drogo and her, got Daenerys pregnant, and the mystic lady told her that it was deformed and looked like a dragon, human bred kind of kid. So same type of thing with that. So it all kind of parallels each other, and that's a great granddaughter of Rhaenyra and Daenerys is, if you guys didn't know that. So it's really cool to see that dynamic. And like you were saying, dude, like, oh my God, just seeing how brutal it is in medieval times to give birth to children. Like, that is a life and death thing, and it is not an easy task. Even today with modern medicine, things can go very wrong very quickly, and so I do appreciate the show for showing us that brutality. I can't think of any other show that has been that earnest about childbearing and childbirth, and it was was a struggle to watch, and just all of that stuff coming together to a head just makes you feel everything for Rhaenyra. I think that Rhaenyra in this really gains a lot of points with the audience as well. You feel for this character, you feel what she's going through, and then to be crowned queen during that funeral procession as well, as Sir Auric. I think it's Auric, right? I
I believe it was Auric that we saw this episode.
He stole the crown, Viserys' crown, and that's what Rhaenyra uses for her crown as queen. So yeah, intense stuff, dude. Intense stuff. I gotta say too, like with Daemon, I don't know how you felt about it, but he lost some definite points for me in this episode. I've liked the character. He's grown on me. Matt Smith is doing a great job with him, but I really did feel, and I've heard explanations for why, but it really took me out of the show when he was choking Rhaenyra, when they got everybody to leave the chamber and everything, and I'm just like, why is he choking her? This is just,
well, and I think that the writers are continuing to find ways to remind us that Daemon is a bad guy.
He is.
He's a murderer, and he's a warmonger, and he's all of these things that are horrible.
Right.
And at the same time, they have to sell us on this romance that, to me, was never fully fleshed out, neither here or in the source material, really. But still, you as creators of a TV show, you have to have something for the audience to come back to every episode, and they have to like villains to some degree. There has to be some kind of redeeming characteristic about them, not necessarily to make them like have a silver lining or an edge of goodness in them or something like that, but to make them not just a complete black and white. It's the whole reason Mary Shelley paints Frankenstein's monster the way that she does, with the inclusion of the innocence of the monster as well as the tragedy of his creation. And so we've been shown this time and time again in literature, how the greatest villains out there have something for the audience to at least feel some kind of connection with. And I think they're giving us that with Damon, but at the same time reminding us of his brutality. And that's the only reason I can think of that they had him choking her out in this particular scene.
Yeah, I think with the showrunner and the showrunners too, they were really surprised at fan reactions toward how they have perceived Damon this whole time, and they're like, we can't believe that people are actually like this character, because they didn't.
Can't either.
I know they didn't really mean for this character to be rooted for or liked as much as he is by the fan base. That said, like, I did read up a little bit about like what their intention was for this. Is Damon was passed up to be the king of the realm and everything by his brother Viserys, and just finding out about the Song of Ice and Fire through Rhaenyra as well, like he had no idea, and it's just like another knock against him. Like his brother didn't trust him enough for that, and so I think in that moment, this character's probably thinking, "Man, Viserys never wanted me to be king," and so a little bit of his jealousy, but at the same time too, he wants Rhaenyra to act and go to war right away. Like he is ready to go with all that. Like during the childbirthing scene, he was down there plotting, getting ready. He just wants to take out the Greens as soon as possible. So his frustration is with Rhaenyra acting a lot like Viserys too, being calm, collected, not making any rash decisions. But ultimately, like we see that is a great choice for Rhaenyra, and that earns a lot of points for me too. I really respected that, how composed she was throughout this whole thing up until the end. Which I think next season we'll see some fun stuff. But at the same time, Rhaenyra, sees that in Rhaenyra and sees a queen, sees somebody that's keeping the realm together and thinking about the realm rather than burning it all down, and Damon very much wants that. He wants to just get in there, do whatever he can so that they can take over the realm.
Yeah, and let's talk about that ending that spurs on what will become the Dance of the Dragons.
Poor Luke, man. I felt every moment of that, just like, and I knew exactly what was coming, but my God, the visual effects and just it puts you into that moment, and just the perspective that you have of Lucerys there on his dragon, this tiny dragon compared to, to Aemon.
Well, in Game of Thrones, there was several homages to other fantasy fiction. Yeah. Aside from just Tolkien. Obviously, Tolkien is laced all through George R.R. Martin's stuff. He's admittedly a huge fan. But whenever we saw the battle between the mountain and the serpent, you know who I'm talking about?
Yeah, Martell.
Oh man. Yes. So obviously meant to mimic what we saw in The Princess Bride, with the repetition of his slogan, so to speak, emulating Inigo Montoya from The Princess Bride. But then they give us this brutal ending to that. Yeah. And here I felt like we're getting a little bit of hiccup from How to Train Your Dragon, I mean, other than Arax being toothless, it was pretty much the same. Yeah. He even had sort of the reddish hues to his outfit and the sloppy hairstyle and all that stuff. And I thought that's how they're killing us as an audience is they take, these innocent homages to other fiction, and then they just blow us out of the water with
good Lord
some brutality. But
yeah, and they really do. Yeah. And I was very interested in how the writers portrayed these characters and how it actually went down, because they kind of try to draw up some sympathy for Aemon, and that the idea is they lost control of these dragons in this moment. And they kept saying in High Valyrian, serve me, no, no, no. And so they kind of give both characters an out for, the conflict happening. That's not what happens in the book. It's a secondhand account about seeing these dragons up in the sky, and then them knowing that, you know, Lucerys did pass away, and they're like, they never found the body. So it was very vague in the books, and, you know, Aemon was very ruthless in this portion, but for his character, I think that this is like the nail in the coffin. This is like his last semblance of being a boy, you know, of that innocent time. And so now he's fully in it, and I think we're going to see some pretty brutal stuff from both sides, from both Team Black and Team Green coming forward. And knowing what is coming, it's hard to be 100% rooting for each of these teams because they both make decisions that are just terrible, you know. So look forward to that in 2 years.
Right? Yeah. No, it's going to be tough waiting that long.
Yeah.
And I wanted to give our audience members out there a little something to enjoy during that time, because I know that in trying to research all this stuff out myself, it became confusing as to what to find where. So I wanted to lay it all out for audience members that may want to look into the books and novellas in the time between this season and the next.
Yeah.
So let me lay it out for you here. In as simplest terms as I can come up with, because it is confusing where to find all this. So, to start the season off, it's very much based on a novella called The Rogue Prince. Now, this isn't a book that you can just go out and buy. It's actually part of an anthology book called Rogues, and it was published in June of 2014. Now, Rogue Prince basically gets us up to the episode called The Green Council. That is essentially the death of Viserys. In order to get past that into what we saw as, you know, the conspiracy to usurp Rhaenyra, and then everything that we just saw in this last episode, that content is laid out in a story called The Princess and the Queen. And that's a novella that's part of the anthology book that you can buy called Dangerous Women. And that was published in December of 2013. Now, the reason why I bring up the publication dates is because these two stories in these two different anthologies were later said by George R.R. Martin himself to be the abridged version of the story. He later wrote Fire and Blood, which we've seen in the credits that this show is based on. That book is actually meant to be a historical text, as Chris has talked about in earlier episodes of Fatherly Fandom, and it very much reads like
it totally does. It's like a maester that's reading it off to you. I'm in the middle of reading that, but listening to it on Audible, and it is pretty awesome. It's a cool little perspective, and the thing I love about that book and about this series too is it gives the writers of this show a lot of leeway, because it's a lot of secondhand accounts and everything. So you don't have a lot of people like in a Lord of the Rings per se that are like, oh, it doesn't meet up to the lore exactly. For this, it's like, well, it's a secondhand account, so they think that it happened this way, but it might have happened a different way. We saw that with Daemon killing his first wife and everything earlier in the season. That was only something they were like, well, Daemon had to have killed him. It didn't specify that in the books, but it's really cool and an awesome read for you guys.
Yeah, it is. And as I was saying, it's presented like a historical text, so you're going to read it like you read a history book, right? It's going to tell you, well, this happened according to this Grand Maester, but there's this dwarf who said this happened, and they're going to give you several versions of the same events. So it's kind of a choose-your-own adventure whenever you read the full thing out. But if you want to just focus on the section that's been covered in Season 1 here, in Fire and Blood, you're going to go to, I believe it's chapters 11, 12, 13, and 14, covering the heirs of the dragon, which starts us back with Jacaerys and his anointing of Viserys as his heir, and then
Jacaerys.
on into Jacaerys, and then on into Daemon's story, and then into the dying of the dragons, as it's called in Fire and Blood, which covers the first part or the last part of this season, and then of course what we will see in subsequent seasons. So if you don't want to be spoiled, you don't want to go too far into the Dying of the Dragon. But it is a fun read, and I don't know, Chris, since you're about midway through, do you think that we'll get the inclusion of the character Mushroom throughout season 2?
Oh, I haven't gotten to this character Mushroom yet.
Oh, okay.
I'm currently where Jaehaerys is ruler of the realm and everything, and all that's going on with that. So about like 50 AC after the conquest. But yeah, so I haven't gotten there yet, but I guess I get to look forward to Mushroom.
I was interested to hear your take. But so for the fans out there that want a little bit more, Fire and Blood is an expanded version of the stories that you get in Rogues and
from
Dangerous
the novellas.
Women. Yeah, so you're going to get the same content, like literally all the dialogue and stuff is still in there, but they'll also give you some extra stuff.
Yeah.
One example that I could think of is in the killing of Beesbury, in the Green Council, it's said that Sir Criston slit his throat, that he threw him out of a window, that they imprisoned him,
Sir Criston,
and all sorts of different things. So, yeah.
I can't wait for his death scene whenever that comes, you know?
Right.
This guy.
Funny enough, scenes like that are changed for the show, and I think it just kind of adds another layer to, what's laid out in the text is meant to be different versions of the same story, and the show is maybe meant to be the actual events or just another
That's
version.
What I love about that.
I don't know.
Yeah, I love that because you get something fresh even if you've read the books.
Yeah.
So you're really getting a lot out of it. And a lot of the fan base right now, and I've been keeping in touch and commenting, and I'm a part of a lot of groups over House of the Dragon. A lot of the fan base is reading Fire and Blood. Like, most of us are very interested now, and this show did a very good job in making us want to dive a little bit deeper. I love, too, for this episode, coming back to the episode, too, we get to actually see Storm's End for the first time, and a Baratheon that we get to deal with as well. And a lot of people, I don't know if you guys picked up on it, but one of Aegon the Conqueror's best friends was a Baratheon, and they actually had some intermarriage there between the Targaryens and everything. So Rhaenyra she has Baratheon blood in her, and that's what they were talking about. Like, oh, go to them because your grandmother is part Baratheon, so they'll honor family like that, which we see in the episode isn't exactly what happens. And it's fun too with the Fire and Blood book. If you are reading it, you kind of understand the context of how things go down in the political and the religious implications of Targaryens holding seats of power. Because the Septons and everything really hate the fact that they intermarry and everything. They think it's sacrilege and everything. So they've had a problem with that since the beginning. And if you look at Aegon the Conqueror in this book too, you see that he actually ruled with his sister wives as well. So they had big places in running Westeros and ruling Westeros. So the idea there is that women can rule the realm. But that's a hard thing for the natives of Westeros to deal with. Even, there's a firm line of succession that most kingdoms go by, having the firstborn son. But the Targaryens never had anything established like that. And we kind of mentioned this in our first episode of this season. If you want to check that out, go back in our library in the playlist for House of the Dragon. But yeah, so that's where all this trouble comes into play. It's like most of the characters in here firmly believe that the firstborn son should be the rightful heir, but the Targaryens didn't set it up that way, and Viserys didn't anoint the firstborn son nor his brother. So
yeah,
all fun.
Yeah, so we got the abridged versions in 2013 and 14. We got the expanded version in 2018. And now the visual version, at least, in 2022. Yeah. So it'll be fun to see what comes next.
Right.
But Chris, overall, what did you rate this episode?
Yeah, let's rate this. This was my absolute favorite episode of this season. I'm not going to hide that fact away. So I have to give this a 10 out of 10. They stuck the landing with this show. And the only thing I'm disappointed with about House of the Dragon this episode is that we didn't get more, and that we have to wait 2 years until 2024 to see where this goes, and just stellar performances all around. I absolutely loved all the visuals. I love the acting. I love the writing of this. Even, I absolutely love that Westeros table and how they lit it up and they had the candles and everything.
That was pretty awesome.
Those little details in them were amazing. We see that Corlys came back as well. I think they handled that pretty well. In the episode, a couple episodes back, when they were talking about how he, was ill and he was out of the picture, it was like, what happened to the actor? I mean, like, are we just not going to show him or anything? But we finally get to see him come back, and it's interesting to see his character development too, because like he was so focused on the crown and sitting on the throne and having his descendants sit on the throne, but now he's just like, you know what? I'm like, what have we gained from this? We've lost our children. This is happening here. It's like we just need to hightail it out of here. And it's funny that Rhaenyra is the one to convince him to be on the side of Rhaenyra for this whole war and the sides that are being drawn here. I love the fact that we got a little taste of we're going to be going back to Winterfell, and I can't wait, man. It's going to be so awesome to see Jacaerys actually go up, Jace for short, go up to Winterfell. It's going to be awesome. It's like, and I guess like Clegane Stark or Craigon Stark, I think is the current Lord of Winterfell, and he's around like 20 or 25 years old and everything. And to see that relationship develop, it's going to be really cool to see. And there's a lot of cool stuff that we're going to get to see in the next season of the show.
Yeah, I think that brings up a good point. I'm looking forward to see that relationship develop as well. I'm looking forward to see the development between Aemond and his older brother develop. Yeah. But I'm also looking forward to, hopefully they include this character, but the Red Kraken. It's a Greyjoy. I forget his first name.
Ooh, that'd be so cool to see the Iron Islands.
Yeah.
Woo!
Right. Yeah. That will be interesting to see how they portray that particular character. So lots of great stuff coming up. I have to agree with you. I think that this was a near perfect episode. Yep. 10 out of 10 for me. They really couldn't have done any better. My favorite moments was Rhaenyra at the end, Aemond at the end, sitting on his dragon, realizing what he'd done. And then Daemon, Daemon, whenever he's holding his brother's crown, about to put it on his wife's head, there was a moment there that Matt Smith just brought his A game. It made us feel sad for this murderous, villainous, terrible guy. And I thought it was great. So 10 out of 10 for me. But what about the entire season?
Yeah.
What did you think of season 1, Chris?
Yeah, let's talk about this. What an amazing season. I'm not going to hide that fact. It blew my mind how this season was able to energize my passion for Game of Thrones and to just bring us all together. I think like we said, like this was the biggest opening, like viewership wise, for HBO ever. So was the finale. There was 2.17 million people that viewed the first episode, and this one, and it was staying like over a million and a half viewers throughout the season. Finale ended with 1.85 million, the most for any finale on HBO Max, HBO I think of all time too. So everybody's engaged with this. Everybody's interested in talking about this. I love that we have a show that we can talk about, that we can actually dive into the theories and dive in deeper and have books to read and just enjoy this fandom. There's not that toxicity that we see in some other fandoms. So I love that. So it's a lot of people coming together for their shared love of Game of Thrones. This did that. I love that George R.R. Martin is taking a bigger role as a showrunner in this. Ryan Condal is doing a great job. Miguel Sapochnik, he did a great job. He's actually leaving. He's not going to be on board for season 2, but thank you for all you've done. And I finally got your name right too. but yeah, all the actors did an amazing job. And for a lot of fans, and we've talked about this whole time, the whole time jump thing and moving forward in time years on end and coming into that was jostling. And I think it was for us too. I think they did about as good as they could do with that and getting us to this point. And seeing it as a whole, I think that was very well done. I know that next season, now that we're in the Dance of the Dragons, it's going to slow down a bit. We don't have to have those time jumps. So I don't think we're going to see them next season with this as much as we saw this season. But I love the world building. I love that it put us into this place where we got to learn a lot more about this world of Westeros and the succession and everything else and the drama that we're seeing. And Emma D'Arcy did a fantastic job with this role, taking it over from Millie Alcock. I very much appreciated that. And yeah, Google Emma D'Arcy or Olivia Cook. It's really cool. Like, they have like a little toast of drinks that like pops up and a little animation that apparently based off of one of the YouTubes where they were talking about their favorite alcoholic beverage. So that was really cool. They have a really cool fringe up too, by the way. But yeah, I very much enjoyed all their performances. Hats off to everybody. It just looked visually stunning too. And for a show, they invested a lot of money into this budget. Obviously we saw Rings of Power was the largest budget ever for a television show, but I think this was definitely on par with like the effects and everything else. I know that you and a lot of other viewers had some problems with lighting when it came to a couple of episodes and whatnot. But overall, yeah, I absolutely love this season, and I very much look forward to going further with this story. I can't wait to where we go. I'm reading the book now. It's so all around hats off for me. I'm gonna give this series, season 1 of House of the Dragon, a 9 out of 10 altogether for me. So what about you, brother?
Yeah, so I very much like where it ended. I did like where it started. I thought there was some hiccups along the way. To again pay homage to our dear friends, creators of How to Train Your Dragon. No, I was thinking about this, and I was like, the time jumps were jarring because we had nearly half the season with certain actors and actresses portraying these characters. Then all of a sudden, in quick succession, we got some really fast-paced episodes. We got episodes where there was new characters, and then the very next episode, they're portrayed by other people. And I gotta say, to me, I wish they'd have taken a structure like Lost and had Emma D'Arcy, had her the entire way through. Had it be flashbacks, because to me, the pacing of the episodes seemed to lend itself more to a flashback type of scenario where you're jumping to memories of certain time periods rather than ask the audience to accept that, whoa, all of a sudden we're 6 months in the future and now we're 2 months in the future. Yeah, like, why couldn't it just be these characters? And it doesn't have to just be Rhaenyra or Alicent. It can be lots of different characters thinking of a time whenever this or that event occurred. And I think it would have fit the structure that we see in the novellas and the historical text, where it's different people's perspectives of what happened. And I think that would have been really cool and less jarring. You still could have had all the same great performances. Really, you could just re-edit this series to have it be structured that way. And I think the audience would accept the differences in time periods a lot better than what we saw. Now,
and Emma D'Arcy does a voiceover in episode 1 explaining exactly what was going on, with Jaehaerys and everything. So yeah, they could have easily slotted that in there if they wanted to. So yeah, that might have worked.
Yeah, and I think sometimes show creators just try to go outside the lines and reinvent and make their stuff unique, and I appreciate that. And it is a brave choice to have us reintroduce to the same characters portrayed by different people week after week after week. So hats off for them for trying it. It just wasn't my particular taste. I think they could have done it better that way I explained. Now, the lighting effects, I will say, is just a fault of the art department and somebody not just calling it quits and saying we need to do. I mean, it just would have taken a moment in the editing room to recolorize these day to night scenes.
You don't like to be in the
and it would have been
darkness.
fixed. Yeah, I really don't understand.
And they filmed those during the day too. All those scenes were
that's what I'm saying.
in the day.
It wasn't actually that dark. No. Like they purposefully made it that unseeable, and I don't understand why. To me, that is a fault there. So. Overall, though, again, had no problems with any of the actors and the actors' portrayal of any of these characters. That's what I really loved about this episode or about this season, is that you can read the source material, and these people are giving us the mindset of the people in the text. The characters are fleshing them out, just like the best actors in the world do. And that is what makes this show stand out to me more than anything else. And yes, I love the effects and I love the story, but I've got to give it hats off to the actors and actresses. I really am just loving what I'm seeing there, and hope for so much more.
Yeah, Patty Considine better
actor.
Get some awards for this performance. Once again, we've been raving about him this whole season in our reviews, but he did. He is an outstanding actor, and this was his show to shine.
Yeah, just everybody did a wonderful job. I think overall, my rating for the entire first season here is going to be an 8 out of 10.
8 out of 10.
Because, I had to get through some slog there. But I think
slog.
Ultimately, making it to the other end. I'm not in love with any of these characters. I'm not really rooting for any of them to win.
He's Team Galadriel. I'm Team Black over here. So.
Exactly.
Switched up real quick from Team Green, though. I gotta say,
Oh yeah,
for a few weeks
back.
Well,
and it's hard to be Team anything when you've read the source material. But
I know coming up, it's gonna be real hard to be on Team Black. But here we are.
Yeah, right. But here we are. So 8 out of 10 for me for the series overall. 9 out of 10 for the finale. I
thought you said 10 out of 10, right?
Oh, yeah. 10 out of 10 from both of us for the series finale. 9 out of 10 for you for the season. 8 out of 10 for me. So there you have it, folks. Yeah. We really love this show.
Absolutely. And I kind of wanted to have a little interesting tidbit here for you guys before we depart, too, because whenever I was watching the show, I mean, we got to see Vermithor when Daemon goes and finds him. And this dragon is the second largest dragon in the realm, and he was Jaehaerys' dragon before, so he was the dragon rider for that. And he was singing a song, and I was like, what? I wonder what the translation for that is. So audience, I just wanted to give you what the translation. I found out what it was.
Are you going to sing it?
I don't know. It's going to be in English, so it's going to probably be hard to sing. I don't have the High Valyrian to sing the original. But here is what he is singing to the dragon there. It is it's fire breather, winged leader, but 2 heads to a third sing. From my voice the fires have spoken, and the price has been paid, with blood magic, with words of flame, with clear eyes, to bind the 3. To you I sing, as one we gather, and with 3 heads we shall fly, as we are destined, beautifully free. So it's a lot of homage to Aemon the Conqueror and his 2 sister wives, as well as the blood magic that they say happened during High Valyria and everything, which caused the doom, but at the same time is kind of probably why, the Targaryens are dreamers too, and they can foresee the future with the Song of Ice and Fire. So it kind of alludes to that too, and I thought that was a very cool element of this show. So there you go. That is the translation for it.
Very interesting.
So, we got a 9 out of 10 for the season for me, and an 8 out of 10 for Matt, 10 out of 10 for the episode. It's been a fun time with you guys. Oh, we did it, Matt. We've got through this. It's just so sad, bittersweet. I got to say, I'm very, very sad that we're not going to be able to talk about House of the Dragon for 2 freaking years, man. It's going to be a tough slog, as you were saying about a couple of episodes in this season. But we're going to be here for you guys for a lot of other stuff. We get a lot of Star Wars coming up here, like Tales of the Jedi's coming out this week. We're going to be covering that, as well as Andor. We're going to be doing Willow next month. So there's a lot to look forward to here at Fatherly Fandom. So go ahead and subscribe. We're at 49 subscribers right now. If we get to 50, that's going to be a big deal for us. So you could be the 50th
You're going to shave half the hair, right?
Not yet. No. But if we get to 100 subscribers, the hair is coming off. So, but yeah, it's a big milestone for us. So you could be the person that puts us over to 50 subscribers. So subscribe today to this channel if you can. It really helps us out. Thank you for that. And Matt, you got anything else before we depart this land for a while from Westeros?
No, I think we said it all, man. We're going to leave it off on a high note.
High Valerian. But yeah, guys, from our families to yours.
Have a good one.
Adios.